Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Wednesday, April 27th, and I think the question on everybody's mind today, Keith put it pretty aptly here, is today going to be a comeback day? Q's trying to bounce from the lows, Bitcoin holding up at that 38K level. So let's take a look at some charts and see if today is in fact a comeback day. But before we do, CJ, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well, Monty. Another good point here. I mean, those are the critical levels, right? Specifically 3K and 40K, those round numbers. Really been holding price back, but with traditional markets up this morning, it'll be interesting to see how it happens. DXY, once again, trucking along at 103, so continuing to print new highs. Looks like a altcoin in the middle of alt season. So you have to imagine that thing tops out sooner or later, or how long that trend can truly sustain. But either way, excited to get into the charts and check out some more, Monty. How about you?
Yeah, excited to take a look at some charts, CJ. And, I think one really important thing is the Qs bouncing from that low. Just a few weeks ago, we hit this same exact level, and that was followed by a week of very, very positive price action. So I think a lot of people are wondering, are we going to get a same bounce from the low here, or are things different this time around? So excited to talk about it. We also have a webinar today at 11:30 Central, so excited to go a little bit more in depth with a lot of these assets and tickers. But beyond that, CJ, I'm ready to dive into some charts. You want to start us off?
Yep. Yeah, so starting off with the S&P, I mean, critical support, right? Um, really testing that level and trying to see if we can get a bounce from the lows. Started to get one a little bit earlier and then was sold into just after the close. So interesting to see whether or not support can truly hold this level. It's really being tested. Some of the oscillators, very basic, you can see starting to turn up from oversold levels, but nothing quite substantial just yet. Really need to hold this level or else, face printing new lower lows and really continuing the downtrend. But I want to get to the DXY because this has been such an extraordinary run that this particular index has been on. Current overbought levels have not been seen since our most recent peak back in March 20th, honestly, of 2020. So this was the COVID lows. This was the liquidity crisis in stocks, which led to that massive gap up from 95 to virtually 103 in the DXY. We are now testing that level as really a multi-year resistance level here. So, we'll see if the DXY has enough momentum to break through there, but we are overbought and we are testing a multi-year resistance level after a very significant parabolic run to the upside. So we'll see how long that can be sustained. Quite interesting nonetheless. And then if you look at some of the inverse currencies related to the DXY or dollar, Monty, you'd shown a good example of this yesterday, but you have a lot of other currencies that are in that basket relative to the US dollar that continue to decline. Japanese yen, as well as euro dollar and won. That's where we look for ultimately the reversal on the DXY. You'll probably begin to see it in some of the other currencies within that basket, which then ultimately can filter back into riskier assets, things like the ARC or the ARC, the Qs, things of that sort. Can see a tentative bullish divergence on that one to start, but nothing indicating an immediate reversal just yet. As for Bitcoin, we are in a very interesting time because if we add the Bollinger Bands, we are in one of the unique territories once again where volatility has gotten very low and we are basically lining up for a very strong squeeze in either one direction or the other. Sure, this can go on for a little while in terms of low volatility periods, but eventually you're probably going to have a large move, either a short squeeze to the upside or a final capitulation down. to these critical levels. So we'll see ultimately how that plays out, but that momentum is truly building, and you can see it within the bandwidth tightening there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff there, CJ. Thank you for that. And one thing that we often talk about when we talk about the DXY is kind of risk tolerance of speculative investors. And we saw just yesterday altcoins falling very hard. But one thing that's worth noting today is that we have a lot of altcoins actually outperforming relative to Bitcoin. We have things like Atom up almost 4%. And you'll notice a clear correlation. The assets that were down the most yesterday are making the hardest comeback today, and the assets that had been resilient in the face of the sell pressure that we had seen earlier this week are not moving as much. Assets like Luna. So Luna did manage to maintain its position around this 20 period smooth moving average, right around $90, and as a result today is not seeing all that much speculation. Whereas an asset like Atom that is very negatively diverged from its moving average is starting to see some positive price action. And I think that's something you can start to expect, going forward when we are attempting to make, bottoms, especially in, traditional equity markets here. People will try to, bottom fish and catch assets with strong divergences from their moving average. So, it looks like the Qs are, pulling back here. Pretty ugly candle here. Let's just take a look at a more interim time frame. But yeah, pulling back here, retesting these lows right now. So today is certainly a critical day. But as you can see, a lot of altcoins that had been sold into hard previously are making some pretty positive moves today. So um, just something worth noting, and I think it's something that will continue to happen going forward as this market tries to make a bottom. Is people looking to catch these assets like Atom, like Phantom, that are far off their moving averages. But for the time being, this market still needs to make a bottom, and it doesn't seem like we've quite done that yet. So just got to keep watching the traditional equity markets, the Nasdaq, the Qs, and for the time being, those are looking pretty fearful. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing for now, CJ. Anything else you would like to add before we wrap things up for today?
Yeah, I just would like to add the fact that I think when we get a spring, or if we get a spring out from these support levels, it will be quite obvious in hindsight that that was the bottom. And, if we get a short squeeze to begin a new trend, because the market, it has so much sidelined capital, so much pent up demand, so much fear that's been just penetrating the market with fears of recession and so forth. But I want to just look at some brief times in Bitcoin's history where we've seen this, and I'll be more specific about what I'm talking about. So the most recent incident here of a spring was when price action kind of looked, I mean, not exactly similar to what it looks like now, but it was really depressing. Like each time these lows are being tested, you thought it was going to break. The market makers are just larger entities. They're trying to break support to shake out the retail holders, to break this support floor. But ultimately, it never broke at 29K. And after we got this short squeeze in terms of the spring upward, 4 or 5 days of positive price action after a month or two of negative price action, that was pretty obvious in hindsight that, all right, this consolidation is over with, and probably can move a little bit higher and have a higher likely chance of going up from here. That's still what I want to see on Bitcoin. It looks like we're really testing the bottom of that level, and a spring could be coming to the upside soon enough if we don't break down. That is, of course. And then also, you have a very similar thing at the bottom at 2018, where you have basically consistent higher lows and just a grind upward until boom, the short squeeze occurred. Now there's a lot less liquidity in the market back in those days. So you can see that the short squeeze is really pronounced all the way from like 4,000 to 5,000, basically a 20% move during this day. But that's the type of indication and the high volume in certain aspects of what you would like to see in terms of like a short squeeze to give us a confirmed breakout of our current like bearish consolidation. So if something like that happens from the lows of what we're seeing right now, that's confirmation for me to add to longs in the short term and to try to ride some continuation to potential new highs. But as of now, we just haven't seen it. We're still seeing weakness in Bitcoin overall. And if we look at Nasdaq, I mean, we're already taking out the lows on Nasdaq. So just something to watch for there until we can get any form of a reversal. But yeah, just doesn't look that great still, but we'll see.
Yeah, still not looking great, CJ. And one thing that, we've talked a lot about in this last couple weeks here is this correlation between Bitcoin and, the Nasdaq. Very high, actually all-time high. And not only that, but it's been sustained for quite a while now. Since these, fears of uh, quantitative easing have really started to grip this market and the Q started to pull back. There has been a strong correlation between Bitcoin and the Nasdaq. But one thing that has often led to a decoupling of this correlation is, like you said, short squeezes. And what's worth noting now is that we are starting to get some pretty significant negative funding rates here. So basically, what that tells us is that the shorts are paying a premium to the longs. There's higher demand for shorts at current levels, and that makes sense given the fearful state of the current market. So people are going to try to short this market. As we break down below these low levels here, and I think that does set up for a short squeeze. But for the meantime here, it does look pretty fearful, CJ. We are breaking below those levels. And I think you need to, position yourself to the downside. So that's all I got. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up today's episode?
No, just a reminder that we got the weekly live member webinar today at 11:30 Central Time. So join and please ask all the questions you'd like. We'd like to cover as many as possible. But other than that, appreciate it, guys. Also, if you'd like to see our trade insights and trade setups, things that we do on a daily basis, you can check out the link in the description below at marketrebellion.com/try crypto. Appreciate that very much. But hope you guys have a great day in the world.